Welcome in, everyone. This is Draft Day Sports College Football 27. This is Season 2 of my UAB Blazers continued journey, Dynasty playthrough. We are on Episode 4. We are 4 games into the season now, 5 game weeks. We've already had one bye. And I guess to cut to the chase, we did win. So we won week 4 against, or week 5, game 4 against Rice. And we beat them 52-16. Great game. But the score really doesn't do justice to it because it was definitely a much closer game. It was really well more of a hair-raising game in the first half than really what that the score shows, and particularly even more so even all the way through the third quarter. It didn't really pick up or really get put away until the fourth quarter. But with that, I'll go ahead, before we jump into the game, I'll go ahead and cover a couple things here. So it looks like basically we were number 20 and we ended up dropping 2 spots, even with that big of a win. But again, our last 2 wins from a strength of schedule standpoint, if we look at Middle Tennessee and Rice, neither one of those are really great wins from a strength of schedule standpoint. So I can see falling a couple spots. I mean, just happy to be in the top 25, honestly, and still there. So this is going to be our third week of representing UAB into the top 25. And then Tulane, who is in our conference, us and Tulane are the only 2 from Conference USA that are in the top 25. They even fell back to 23. But you did have a couple of teams like Iowa State and Michigan that did appear to jump us, which, I mean, is understandable, from their conference, their prestige, and their records and wins and kind of what they've done is pretty good. The one team that did jump us because they were behind us was Bowling Green. They won again. They're 4-0, as are we, and UAB and Tulane are 4-0 as well. And the MAC conference, honestly, I don't think is really as strong as the Conference USA, but they did get a jump on us, so they actually came ahead. But that's okay. I mean, it's still, we're week 5. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, I'm just happy to be in the top 25, which is great, compared to where we were last year. So with us being 4-0, we've already won as many games this year as what we did the entire season last year. We were 4-8 last year, didn't make a bowl, and had a really great recruiting class. Again, had like the 34th recruiting class in the country. Got a lot of seniors that are really playing, and they're really playing out of their minds right now. Several of them, really looking good. But we are going into week 6, which will be our 5th game. We're going into week 6, which from a game standpoint is October 6th of 2025. We had another 334 players recruit this week, which gives us a total of 1,223 recruits that have signed so far throughout the entire nation to the current 132 teams. We did finally get our recruits. We got some. We ended up getting 3. We did lose more on our board, and I think we've lost more that we actually had offers out to. But we did sign 3 guys, and one of them was the cornerback, the 400 rated quarterback or a cornerback, not quarterback, that we needed. So we did need that corner. So, pretty much any other corners, I think at this point, we'll probably maybe run a contact with. Just depends on how things start really falling with maybe more of my secondary as far as my safeties go. But for the most part, we probably won't be actively pursuing another corner at this point. The other 2 positions, I think we got a linebacker and a receiver. But let's take a look. Let's jump in that and go ahead and get that covered. Let's see, from our email, we did receive the week 5. A defensive tackle. I'm sorry. All right. So basically, that was the Altarius Swain. It's not really the top guy that I really wanted, but he was one that was really, really kind of showing a lot of interest in us. And as soon as I started pushing hard for him and made the offer, he immediately went hot. And the very next week, this week, he signed. I think he's going to do pretty serviceable. I do believe he's 6'4", 307 pounds. Local Alabama guy. And his intelligence is a C plus. His speed lacks, but he's great strength, agility, and tackling. From an interior guy, that's probably the three things I'm looking at pretty heavily. Good leadership skills. Lacks a little bit on work ethic, but his other personality ratings are pretty decent. And so we got him. We still need more defensive tackles, so we're still actively pursuing defensive tackles on that front. I think honestly, if I signed another 2, I'd be great with that as well. Linebacker's another position. That's another position we really, really need to bulk up on and need numbers, need more than one. But we did get this Randall Ferguson, and this is one that, again, he was a 3-star, only ranked 1532, but looking at his ratings, and I've watched the scouted attributes, through the course of the last few weeks, as we recruit him, and they're not changed. They're not changing at all, really. The report certainty is still at a medium. It's better than a low, but it's still at a medium, so some things can change. But they've been consistent so far, and he's basically straight B's all the way down the board. B plus strength, B plus intelligence, and B plus hands, with B speed, tackling, and agility. And I'll take that all day, every day. Another local Birmingham guy. And again, he lacks, his personality ratings aren't great. Leadership skills are decent. Work ethic is below really what I would like to see it at. But another solid pickup for us. I think it's going to work out really, really well. And then Marcus Jeffries is that corner that we got. So I do know that if he had chosen to go elsewhere, there was definitely 1 or 2 more other fallbacks that we would have taken. I know Tony Andrews was one of them. And quite honestly, kind of looking back on it, I probably made the mistake not really pursuing him more and trying to frontline Andrews over Jeffries. But at the end of the day, I'll take Jeffries. Again, I'm not happy with the work ethic. I mean, I'm really getting some guys falling in here pretty low work ethic, but doesn't mean they can't really be pushed along. But again, this guy's straight B's down the board except for strength, which good speed, B plus agility for a corner, pretty smart, with good hands for a corner. So we'll take that one as well. Guys that we ended up losing, scholarship offers that we had. We did lose Galvering to Duke, which I really felt like we would, and I lost Corliss, the linebacker, to Florida. Again, another one that I really felt like I would. And Ruggs, we lost Ruggs to Memphis, and I felt like that. So I was really expecting to lose those 3. I kind of was really pushing hard because I was hoping, maybe if I didn't lose all 3, maybe I'd at least get one of them. But they all went by the wayside and chose elsewhere. Dontrell Frazier, I really didn't have a good read on him or what he was going to do, but he ended up choosing Southern Mississippi. But the one that really surprises me, again, is Dalen Quiles. He chose Jacksonville State over us, and this is the second surprise recruit that we've lost to Jacksonville State. And, with how we're playing, where we're located in comparison to where they're located and how they're playing, I don't understand, and I've got good coaching and good recruiting and everything else. I don't understand how we've lost the 2 that we've lost to Jacksonville State. But I do know that when it comes a time to play them, I'm going to want to smoke them because they're really ticking me off. They're taking my guys. And then going down to the interested players, and these are definitely some guys that I did have on the fallback list, particularly Tarsh Harvey, that linebacker that I really did like a lot, and would extend off. We lost several linebackers in this area that we didn't have offers extended to. A couple more corners, which are fine. I think Denton and Adams kind of going away is fine. We got the corner that we wanted. We lost a free safety there and a couple defensive linemen. I only lost one offensive guys in this area, and that was that Lindsey Mitchell, who we weren't really pushing real hard for anyway. But the one that was probably on this list more than any of them, Natterson. I know I really like Natterson a lot, but I did see a couple of scholarship offers fall in for him, and he didn't really. I kind of figured I'd lose him to Arkansas. I think it was Memphis and Arkansas between them. And he's an Arkansas guy. I felt like he was going to stay in state and go to Arkansas, which he did. The one that I really would have liked to have had on this list was Tosh Harvey, but I do have 2 or 3 other linebackers out there kind of ahead of him. So, and they're still currently active with what we're trying to pursue. So if we kind of go back and jump in this, I know I'm doing this a little bit backwards. I typically cover the game first, but I did want to basically kind of go through recruiting, get it out of the way, then maybe cover the game, then kind of look at the next game and preview, and then go through some game planning. And then I did want to show the training piece of this. So there is an area of training that I did want to basically show you guys. And anybody that watches this, I'd be real curious to see what you think of this process, and maybe be interested in hearing how you go about it, because I'm not really a big fan of letting the auto burnout kind of control. I really, again, I like to I guess I like to micromanage everything as much as I can. But looking at the recruiting now, I'm going to the dashboard. So we're going to go basically to let's look at the targets first. So this is kind of the area that we have targeted, and I've basically got all of my recruiting actions kind of currently set up. We did lose scholarships out from this last session, so I ended up basically extending more scholarships out into new areas. We still have 17 offers out there. There's really none left to give. I've got 3 that I've got committed, and there's still 17 offers there. And currently there's 79. I think we started with 100 targets on our overall list, and we dwindled down about 20, added 20 back, and then we've lost more, so we're back down to about 79. I've went through and kind of looked maybe in a couple areas to kind of add 1 or 2. I'm not really going to do it right now. I think ultimately I'm just going to go with kind of what we have on the boards right now, and try and push through and get as much of what I can with what we have out there currently. I did go back through and review, all of the feedback on every one of the players as to what they responded on the pitches with. There's a couple of them I ended up changing. They were borderline with what I had chosen and selected. And then some of the new guys that I added last week, because I didn't really have any information on them. I was just kind of throwing organization out there to them to have something on the pitch list. They didn't respond well to, it wasn't dire, but they didn't, what I'm seeing is they're not really responding well to organization, but at least it's something that's there, and it's not like telling me that, oh, you did, we were expecting more, you didn't come with enough, or whatever. It's just like basically, we didn't really want to hear about that. Maybe you want to choose something else. So then I go back and look at kind of some of those areas and see where I need to adjust the pitches on, and I did adjust the pitches on a lot of those. And then 1 or 2 that I kind of just had borderline pitches on that I went through and adjusted as well. Did go back through and offer basically a little bit more NIL. Obviously only NIL offers are going out to people that currently have a scholarship offer out there. We've got information back on a lot of them. I've got 1 or 2 that I've added there. And this week, again, so going back to the schedule, I'll come back to the recruiting, but I did want to look at this. So I should have basically had some visits at this Troy game. It was my home game, because I ended up going back to 3 straight road games and a bye week. So I had 4 straight weeks, which I think had a lot to do with some of my recruiting woes as well, and maybe why I'm not getting things back as big or quickly or maybe in numbers as kind of what I hope for, because I haven't really offered or had any campus visits through this whole last month period. Next two games I have at home. The South Alabama, I'm pretty heavily favored. I'm throwing the kitchen sink on campus visits on this game. And again, I'll probably, depending on how things fall out and come back with that, I'll probably end up having considerable amount of visits on this Houston game as well before we go back on the road in another bye week. So these two opportunities these next week 6 and week 7, to really try and get those campus visits in are going to be pretty crucial. So I've really spent a lot of money trying to host these campus visits for this week, because I think ultimately I've got 17 offers out there. All 17 of those offers I've got coming to campus, plus another one, this free safety that I don't really have an offer to, but I do have him coming as well, because I really want to learn a little bit more about this guy, because he's pretty intriguing to me as well. So definitely have a big spend there, and a lot of money going out on those campus visits. If I go back now and kind of drop down and just look at what I kind of have scholarship offers out there too, you can see everybody's on an official visit. I've got my pitches sitting there. I went through and promised on some of these guys too. I've promised just to try and do anything I can to get a little bit more information out of these, because I really feel like this Baumgartner center will definitely get some playing time, without a doubt. I know for a fact, losing both of my fullbacks, Pendergrass will definitely get a lot of playing time. And then this Damian Potter, because I really feel like he's better than probably any tight end that I currently even have on roster right now. I think he, especially I do play a lot of two tight end and two tight end jumbo in certain situations, so I feel like without a doubt he can definitely get some playing time next year. So I felt it pretty safe to kind of make those promises. I'm really hard pressed to make any kind of promises to anybody to be a starter. Depending on how our seasons go, like now I'm sitting 4-0, maybe I could promise bowl game. I feel like we should win at least a couple more games this year. I mean, all we got to do is get to 6, right? So maybe I can start promising a bowl game, but I don't ever really want to promise playoffs or championships or starter. I mean, those are 3 things that I'd really be hard pressed to promise anything with it, especially with this Prestige team and trying to do a build up there. But playing time and bowl games are probably 2 of them that I think probably may be pretty safe. The NILs, so what we have out there currently right now in offers, I think so far out of one of the commits that we have, as far as my commits, only one of them was promised NIL money, and that was the cornerback Jeffries. That was $250K. I don't really have a big budget, so I try and spread it out a little bit. Maybe I should probably go a little heavier and a little deeper, but Swain and Ferguson, neither one really required any NIL. And I did offer NIL out here to one of the guys, and it came back and says, money's not really what he's worried about. So it kind of seems like it might be a waste to have offered that. But my take on this was to go back through and look at guys that, particularly this guy here has got two offers out there, so somebody else is after him too. So I'm just trying to do anything I can. I got a $550K NIL out there to him. Altman's got a 50, 220, and a 220 there. So that's some money that's kind of out there. I did go back through Gunnar Jones and this Lydell Gully guys, the areas that I feel like I really need. This Pendergrass, I went ahead and offered him because I'm not getting much movement there, and I really need this fullback. So I've kind of offered playing time and a Tier 1 NIL for him. I figure for a fullback, Tier 1 should be sufficient. And then this guard, Jeff Butcher, I really like him a lot too, so I kind of went ahead and thrown that out there. Currently, the only offer I have out there out of these 17 that actually has a secondary offer right now is Kenwayne Harley. Everybody else, I am their only offer. Doesn't mean anything, because I just saw it happen last week where I was an only offer, and then all of a sudden it looked like one of the big guys, Alabama, made an offer, and that other team immediately signed. I think that's all they were waiting on, was to see somebody else, bigger fish in the pond to make an offer, and then they jumped on it. So that definitely is something that could happen to quite a few of these. The guys that I did replace, that I did make offers out on, that I did not previously have an offer to, is Stephon Clark, this free safety. He's pretty solid. He's middle of the road, in personality ratings, but he's pretty solid going down the list for his scouted attributes at the moment. And then currently he doesn't really have a top school, and I'm currently on his only offer. Carter Wells lost the wide receiver, so I ended up going. I kind of chose this guy, and I kind of picked him. Don't really like his intelligence rating, honestly, to be that kind of low, but he's got B speed and A- hands with B+ agility. I like that a lot, and he's got a great work ethic, good competitiveness. No top schools, and I'm currently his only offer. So, that one hopefully will work out pretty well as well. Dan Niles, I think I had him offered last week, but he's another one, linebacker, that I kind of stepping up and kind of wanting pretty good too. And with Verrett, the quarterback, going to Alabama, I ended up offering Outman, but I think that was last week too. The other new one on the board right now is this defensive tackle. He's pretty highly ranked. He's a 4-star, 166 rank, and he doesn't seem to be heavily recruited, as best that I can tell, really, by anybody. He's an Alabama guy. Definitely looks like he falls across the board pretty well on his scouted attributes. Nothing extraordinary on his personality, but no top schools, and we're currently his only offer. So I do know that I definitely I got a defensive tackle. Wasn't really as good a one as I kind of really hoped for, so I'm kind of really trying to strike hard. I think this guy could be the one. So based on that, with what I have, I've still got my quarterback out there, which I don't really have to have, but would like to have. Then fullback I really do need. I do need a guard, and would definitely use a couple more tackles. The center I need. Tight end I don't have to have. Really would like to have that guy. These 2 receivers need to fill the slot. These 3 linebackers need to fill the slot. I would love to have all 3 of those. The defensive tackle and defensive end, I need two more front line guys. And then of course my 3 safeties that need to come in. I need to, especially losing Quiles, I need to get one or both of these guys for sure, without a doubt. Not a lot of interest. I've got this one warm interest here and the one hot interest up here at the top with Outman. Outside of that, there's just some. There's really not a lot. Really curious to see how these official visits go, and going into playing South Alabama. I really need to have a big showing out here. And not come out and lay an egg. I really need to win big, and I need to play a lot of these freshmen from the previous class. Show them, just try and create a spectacle, I guess, to really want these guys to really sign. Some of the dollar spent are getting up there a little bit. The bulk of a lot of this basically is because I think all of the official visits all fell between somewhere around like an $18,000 to $21,000. So a big bulk of that is what's coming in. And again, looking back on the dollar spent, again, not having for the last 4 weeks any official campus visits, I honestly think has probably hurt me more than anything. So I think future scheduling, I definitely would like to see more home games kind of scheduled earlier. At least out of the first 4 weeks, having at least 2 home games of them there, to where you can kind of get some visits in now. But I will say I screwed up and not had any coming to Troy. I really should have had probably a block of 10 or 12. Again, who would you have picked? Because it's the first week of the season, and you don't have much scouting information on any of the recruits. So it would have been a crapshoot, but it still would have been better than nothing. And I think some of those early ones that I had on the board would have been ones I probably would have wanted to come to that Troy game that I didn't have, that ended up signing and going elsewhere, that could have been a contributing factor or a deciding factor on me not getting them, possibly. Who knows? Don't know that for sure, but it could have been. All right, so that is recruiting. I think I've got everything set with what I need to for this week, so we're not going to really progress or go any further kind of in that. I'm going to wait and cover scouting last. So what we'll do is let me go ahead and go to the schedule, and I'll get ready to pull up this Rice game, and we'll see. So, we win to go 4-0, they lose to go 0-4. It was 52-16. But here's the box score. So basically, at halftime, it was really a 17-6 game, which still is somewhat lopsided, but it really was much closer than that. So really, in this one, I think the first quarter it was interesting because it ended up with me only with a 3-0 lead. Going to the play-by-play, it was kind of a little bit trippy because we kicked off, they got the ball, and we ended up sacking them and putting them into a long 4th and 21 from their own 16, and immediately blocked the punt. Blocked the punt and ended up getting the ball right there at their 16. So I'm in the red zone just right out of the gate. Minute into the game, into the red zone. And we ended up losing 2 yards on the first play, incomplete pass, and then got sacked for 11 yards. So we're back there on a 47-yard field goal. And something I didn't show you is this game did show that there was 28-mile-per-hour winds. So I'm sure that, particularly on some of these punts that you see, and then some of the longer field goals, that probably factors in from the AI perspective in the game. But I did end up missing 47-yard field goal, come out with nothing. Block punt, get the ball inside the red zone, and get nothing. So they get the ball back and kind of go back through, and so I was sitting there looking at that. So it was a 3-and-out. So I blocked the punt the first time. I put them in another 3-and-out situation. They punt the ball to me only 34 yards down the field. I return it 65 yards. Kaiser, the freshman, returns it 65 yards to the 5-yard line. And again, Ware gets 0 yards. I got sacked. Penn gets sacked again. Another 0-yard rush. So we ended up with nothing. Again, we did kick the field goal and got the field goal that time on a short field goal. So 2 golden opportunities to go up 14-0 this early in the game. Again, it's only 5 minutes into the game. Golden opportunity to be up 14-0. I'm sitting there 3-0. And that's kind of the way it went. And the sacks were unbelievably crazy in this game. I did go into the game and I did want to pressure this Clay Hebert a lot. So he is their leading rusher. He's another dual threat. I did want to play a lot of contain, try and keep him between the tackles, not let him outside. And then when it was situations where I felt like it was going to be a pass, I did want to really just kind of hit hard and try and blitz. And I blitzed more this game than I probably did, and really the other 3 games combined. I was blitzing a lot, especially when it was in what appeared to be definitive passing situations. I put a lot of pressure on him, and it did work out. Ended up with 14 sacks. 14 sacks. They got to me 3 times, but I got him 14 times. So going into the second quarter, they ended up getting a field goal, right at the end of the first and going into the second. Then we got back-to-back touchdowns, and then they ended right at the half ended up getting their other field goal for it to be a 17-6 game. Third quarter was uneventful. We did get a touchdown, made it 24-6. Going into the fourth quarter, I'm feeling a little bit better now, 24-6. I think things are working out a little bit better, from a play calling. Hebert's still getting his yards. He's only 8 of 20 passing, but he got 157 yards because he actually hit some good long passes on a couple situations, and he still ended up with a 100-yard game too, rushing. The fourth quarter is where it got really, really, really interesting. So when the fourth quarter started, just shortly into it, they got their field goal and made it 24-9. So, they pulled it in within to another two-score game going into the fourth quarter. Immediately after that field goal, we get a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Boom, right there, 31-9. They go into, we kick off, they get a 3-and-out, or not a 3-and-out, but he ends up throwing a pick six to Catrell McCray. So within those 3 minutes, that's 14. Now I'm up 38-9. Then they get a touchdown, then we come back and get two touchdowns kind of at the very, very end of the game. And really that last drive where Justin Williams scored that 21-yard run on that with 19 seconds left, I wasn't downing the ball, but I wasn't really trying to do anything. I think at that point maybe it was just so spent, or maybe he was blitzing or doing something in situations, from Rice's side that just kind of allowed him to, for the most part, walk in on that last drive. But it ended up 52-16. And so 4 games in, we're 4-0. The cool thing about it is I've had previously I had two pick sixes and a return punt for a touchdown. This game I got a return kickoff and another pick six. So I've had a punt return for a touchdown, kick return for a touchdown, and 3 pick sixes in 4 games. And 2 of those 3 pick sixes were from freshmen that are coming in. The punt return was a freshman that came in, and this kick return from Motley, a freshman coming in. So out of those 5 touchdowns, 4 of them are from the new freshman recruiting class that's coming in. Total yards, they beat me. I won 52-16, but they ended up with more yards. But ultimately, again, 14 of these points were not produced by the offense on any kind of drive. We did end up really only 8 of 14 for 78 yards passing. Another very subpar passing game. And I'm really coming to the conclusion that I'm starting to sit there and think that it's got a lot of this has got to be me and my play calling. Because I really feel like Penn ought to be doing better in these situations. I just don't think I'm play calling, putting the numbers in the right spot for it to be happening. But we did have another good rushing game, 220. I mean, we typically that's our game on 36 carries. So we really only had 50 total plays, in comparison to their close to 60. So they got time of possession as well. Penalties, we got rocked on penalties. I mean, they had 3, but we had 9. Turnovers, though, again, they had 2 turnovers, we had none. So we're winning the turnover, and that's the other big thing. And the other thing I really wanted to focus on this year too is trying to make sure that hopefully we're winning the turnover battle, week after week after week, and as that accumulates. Because I know last year I think we ended up pretty deep on the negative side. I mean, we gave up way more turnovers than what we ended up really getting by season's end. And I think that table is completely turned this year. I think ultimately through these 4 games, I think we've probably had maybe 4 turnovers in total between fumbles and interceptions. But I think we've gotten probably 10. So I think we're probably on a +6 already 4 weeks in, which is way different than last year. Really, really significant. And it helps. Honestly helps a lot. Again, Hebert, 8 of 20 for 157, but if you look at some of his passing, he had 11, 21, and 51, 26. So, he had, three passes down yard. I mean, 100 of those 157 yards came on three receptions. But outside of that, I mean, we shut it down pretty good, especially 14 sacks. I mean, it's just freaking crazy. Running, nobody. Sendejo did pretty good. But outside of that, I mean, they're running backs. I mean, they only carried 10 times. Abear carried 22, so the brunt of everything kind of fell on his shoulders. And he had some decent runs. I mean, he had a 28-yard run, which was one of them that was really, really good. But there were several of them that he was able to pick up. And if you look at, like, the third down conversions, they really were only 1 of 13, though. But we weren't much better with 2 of 10. So we definitely struggled when we got into the third down situations. And then passing, not much there. Special teams, they didn't really do a lot. And they did get 3 sacks across the board there. You know, Zugwu and Lamond and Pettigrew each had 1. Leading tackler was Poole, and Patterson was 6. You know, nothing big time there. But then you kind of flip over to ours, and then you just look at the sacks, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different guys get sacks. Now, I did rotate in. There's a lot of rotational guys playing, but 14 sacks to begin with, but then to have it from 11 different guys, because ultimately I had 3 guys that had 2. Outside of that, everybody else had 1. But where they came from was linebacker, defensive end, linebacker, cornerback, linebacker, defensive tackle, linebacker, and defensive end. So they was basically just all around, you know. And again, like I said, a lot of blitzing. Didn't do a lot of outside blitzing, but the one time that I did, it did work with Sanford. Sanford kind of came in and it was quick and fast, and he just basically, it was like a third and long situation, and I do remember that one. Pretty much snuffed it out pretty good. Going to the players, again, Penn, another subpar game, 8 of 14, 78 yards, no picks. Didn't really do anything to hurt us. And then, you know, rushing, nothing spectacular outside of Williams. You know, he had that, I think, 20-something yard, 21-yard run at the end of the game, but then he also had a 52-yard run. So you figure, you know, 70 yards of his 93 came on just 2 carries. But he ended up being the leading rusher with just 5 carries with 93 yards. And but Saunders and Bedford each ended up in the 60s with minimal carries. I mean, it was kind of shared across the board pretty good. Ware only got 2 touches for 3 yards, but I think one of them was a 3rd and short, and the other one was a goal line touchdown. So, you know, typical Ware situations. And then passing, you know, nothing big. You know, we went to six completions to receivers and 2 to a tight end. And then Hibbard was 7 of 7. Again, another perfect day from the extra points standpoint from pulling after touchdowns. But he did miss the 2 long field goals. Think with the wind, I think, probably being a contributing factor. And I want to point out the punters. So again, wind. I think wind definitely plays a part. But again, Seitz definitely has a leg. We know that, right? So I mean, he's hitting around that 48, 50-yard average mark just about every single game. But he dropped off a 69-yard punt. And it was funny because it was like the very next punt that he had to make after Shuck over here, you know, he had a block punt. So his average didn't really turn out high because he had that kind of count against him. But he had a 70-yard punt. And I think that was a punt that went from, it was inside their own 10-yard line. And then I'm turning around looking at getting the ball back inside my 30 on a punt. I was like, what the hell just happened? But the very next time I had to punt, he's like, you ain't going to outdo me. He kicked a 69-yarder. And then returns, again, Kaiser had that 65-yard return that got it down into the 5-yard line, almost a touchdown, almost brought it all the way back. But another outstanding punt return day. And then Motley carrying his 95. So we had definitely a supreme special teams day for sure. And then that pretty much covers that game. So if you kind of go back through, now let's kind of go in and look at our week. I guess we'll go back to week 5 real quick and maybe jump in some top 25 games and just kind of see if there's anything that, I don't think anything really jumped out at me significantly that was like Bowling Green beat Akron 38-7. So yeah, they're jumping. They were ranked 25th. They're now all the way up to like 19 or something like that. But so nobody's really lost. So Oregon did beat Southern Cal. Again, their one loss was that early season loss, so they're really starting to put it back together pretty well. And then, of course, Auburn did upset LSU at home in Auburn. And then Maryland won. That was a great game. West Virginia did end up pulling it off against Miami. No upset there. Georgia pulled it out against Florida. Texas handily beat Oklahoma in the Red River. Oklahoma State beat Baylor. Baylor sitting 1-3 now. But again, 2 of their losses, well, all 3 of their losses came against ranked teams, counting us. We weren't ranked at the time, but that's what kind of put us in there. Minnesota. So that was the game I was really wanting to kind of watch last week. And we were going to see how good Minnesota is, and then watch Notre Dame in really a must-win, because all 3 of their losses previously were within 1-score losses, and damned if they didn't have another one. It looks like it went into multiple overtimes, and Minnesota was able to pull it out and win with a 53-51 win. So that's 0-4 for Notre Dame, all 4 losses within 6 points or less. Clemson took out Duke. Florida State won. No surprise there. Utah as well. Ohio State, no other. That was a tight game, but no other big changes. So ultimately, that's kind of where we are there. And then if you kind of look into this week, this upcoming week, really looking for good matches. Mississippi against LSU. LSU's coming off that loss at Auburn, and then Georgia, Tennessee. That ought to be a really, really good game as well. Then Clemson, and then we're playing South Alabama. We are a 25-point favorite. Minnesota, Ohio State. So this is going to be another week to really look and see what Minnesota might have, and they're having to go on the road to play at Ohio State. And then our game and our matchup looks like we are 25-point favorites against South Alabama. South Alabama is 2-3, and they don't have a dual threat quarterback, but they run a ton of RPO. And I'm sitting there looking and trying to figure out what I'm going to do to play call on as much RPO that they're running. He's passing more times than what they're running. I think they've ran 182 times. I think their total running is about 150. So it's pretty balanced. But the RPO, again, I mean, they could be running RPO 40% of the time over the rush and pass. But out of that 40% of the time, however many plays they have, how many of them are they running and how many of them are they passing? I mean, again, it comes to the play call of what the defense calls, I guess, that dictates what they end up doing there. They do have a couple linemen out that are not going to be playing. And then I've got the same kind of guys that are sitting here. Mingo's going to play with a jammed finger, and I've still got Luker and Stamps down in the depth chart. Stamps would be kind of a reserve backup. I would have Luker coming in on certain situations, so he would be a rotational guy typically. Doesn't really, neither one of those hurt extremely really bad. And Mingo, again, with Amar Carva as a backup to Mingo, that's not detrimental to not have him in the game, but I definitely would like to have. He's probably my most intelligent guy. Basically the defensive quarterback, right? So he's the one that needs to kind of direct the defense. So that's kind of where we are there. So one thing I am going to let me look at something here, because I did have something I wanted to see. Was it? Is it here? No, it's not. Wait a minute. I kind of started looking at my play calling a little bit, and it's not that. I think it's let me see here. It's going to be in this folder. So looking at the RPO piece of it, and kind of what I feel like we need to do, and again, a lot of it, my offense doesn't really dictate. I'm not going to really look at what they do on defense. That's going to dictate what I do on offense, but I am going to try and look offensively. I'm going to try and look at their defense to see where they're weak and what holes they have, which will determine some of my play calling through the game and where I try and go. But on the defensive side, so if I look at their offense, one thing that I do is I'll go through and kind of look at what they've done in season up to this point, and I'm really just looking at formation tendencies. So when I see them come out in a specific formation, I can kind of quick glance at this and just see what they've done just from a history standpoint. It's not great accuracy, but it does give you some telltale signs on what to do sometimes in certain situations. It also kind of gives you an idea of what they do overall. So, in 337 plays, about 1/4 of them are RPO. Close to half of them are pass. So, they're definitely, kind of a pass first, more so in certain situations than others. Like, for example, in the spread and 2 tight end jumbo, they're pretty much passing. Pro set, it's a crapshoot. It's a gamble. Who knows what they're going to do? Shotgun, they're not going to specifically call a run play out of that. They're going to predominantly run RPO out of that, which means they possibly, out of those 36 plays, the bulk of those could have been run plays. I didn't go really kind of in that deep of detail, but I do know if on the RPO with what's there, I kind of have in my mind what I want to kind of have on the field defensively, at least from my formation standpoint. Maybe I'm doing, I don't know, maybe some 4-3 wide. It just depends on really what they're doing on the RPO plays. Or they, whether they're passing or running, are they going outside? Are they trying to go outside? Maybe I go wide. But yeah, I'll just kind of look at that to kind of give me an idea. And surprisingly enough, the formation they play the most out of is wishbone. 55 plays. The pro set 54 again. So interesting. It's like pro set, you don't know what they're going to do. Wishbone, they're pretty much going to run. So if I see wishbone, and that's the other thing. So there's not too many other formations outside of the I formation. So if they come out of wishbone or I, I'm just going to be playing run for the most part. Depending on the down and yardage situation, maybe I'm not aggressively trying to call a 5-2 or something like that. Maybe I'm keeping something back or whatever. But that's kind of where we're going there. And so ultimately, I've got my strategy kind of set for what I'm going to game plan on these guys, and I think for the most part, because they do have a tendency to pass more, and I think they probably as good as I've done against the run kind of up to this point. I think they're probably I'm going to focus on pass. but I'm gonna primary coverage is gonna stay man on that. But I want my defensive line to definitely pass rush and my linebacker roles to kind of be a mix. Offensively, I'm going to play aggressive, and I'm going to basically focus on the run. Not going to try and go fast or anything like that, but I'm going to stay balanced. I don't want to tie myself to anything, from a passing perspective, but I'm definitely probably going to be looking at outside and middle, probably short, and again, maybe that's the wrong thing, but until I can figure out if he's going to get his legs underneath him and really start kind of clipping out some passes and with a little bit more consistency, I don't know really what else to do, but I'm going to focus on outside running because I feel like I can kind of, my speed with my running backs and with my line, I think I can kind of dictate what I want to do from a running game against these guys. So we'll kind of see there. And then the last thing really to cover, so I know we're basically, what are we, about 50, this longer than I kind of wanted, but so here's the thing that I'm doing on training. And I've went through and basically set the burnout on everything except my quarterbacks and running backs, I think at this point, and my receivers. But what I do is I try, so you get this number right here, right? And when you go individually and you kind of look in, with their current training sessions, currently right now, I don't have anybody that's got a burnout. And that's kind of because I've been doing this week after week and I don't have auto burnout on. And their existing currently burnout schedule shows them with a negative number, which means they shouldn't be producing any burnout. If anything, they're lax in their training. They could definitely have more training. If I go in individually, for example, let's take the tight ends. If I look at my tight ends, and Mintzer's my starter, he's got like a -7. But if I go in there and I look at training, he's got mental, and mental. Those are all like a -1 type training session. Game tape is another -1. So to exclude some of the mental, and if I want to particularly kind of get him more into the game, he's my starter, and I want game prep to kind of increase a lot, I've got this -7. I'll take one of these mentals and change it to a scrimmage. Now it's -5. And it's, you notice it kind of climbed up there. And then for another one, if I wanted to say, all right, I'm going to basically add technical off this mental from my OC for his session with him, it goes to a -3. His technique increases. And then if I wanted to go over here and say, okay, this guy, he's gonna have a tactics session, which probably that and scrimmage, I don't know truly what the difference is. Maybe this is more in tune to look what he ought to do against the specific defense or something. I don't know. But if I do that, you'll notice game prep climbs tremendously, and then that drops another 0.2 down to 1. So I've got one more of these mentals that I can sit here and move across, and say I wanted to train and put physical there. Then you notice how everything kind of bumps up. His mental kind of drops a lot, but now I got his burnout changed down to a 0, which means, and auto-managed burnout's unchecked, so I don't want them changing or doing anything after I set whatever I set. So his current burnout 0, with his burnout change at 0 with what I've set here, it should maintain that and keep that throughout the year. Now, if I wanted to continue to beef this up and take out some things and add some other things, and like the game tape and other stuff like that, I can go into a positive number here. But I think over time, what will happen is that increases that current burnout. And then once that current burnout gets to, I think what they said was like a 10 rating, things start really going off the rails. Interestingly enough, though, I can't see how you can ever get to this 10 burnout rating, because I can change some of these things here and hardly get the burnout change up to like a positive 5 with how things are kind of currently set. So my thing is I'm just going through, and what I've done to this point is I'm just trying to keep everything on a balance here. I don't mind going positive a little bit here and there if I feel like it's something that maybe not needed here and I wanted to get something more here. I'll make that change. But for the most part, I'm keeping a 0-0, and it should kind of be that week after week. Is that maximizing my training? I have no idea. And again, I don't know exactly how all of this really works, and that's why I kind of wanted to throw this out here to show what I'm doing currently right now in this season, and then kind of maybe get a feel for anybody else watching. What are you guys doing? How are you managing this piece? Are you still letting them auto manage a burnout, and you're still seeing a lot of issues with your emails later in mid-season where guys are just burning out and just going to crap? I haven't seen that yet, but again, like I said, I'm only week 5, going into week 5 here, so I'm not sure. So ultimately, if I go to the next guy, I kind of do the same thing. He's got a lot more points to get back to the 0. A lot more things I can kind of do with this guy. So I'll throw, not really technical, I'll throw, excuse me, tactics there, maybe throw in a scrimmage here. Maybe I'll sit there and take say a physical and maybe another athletic, and then it's still got a -1, so I'll sit there and do a scrimmage, and then boom, I got him back to a 0. Again, mental's falling down. I don't know at what cost this mental dropping like it is really doing, but if you go back through here, if you look at the schedule summary, you have the training categories, right? So mental in the training categories affects, team player competitiveness, work ethic, leadership, stuff like that. So I guess maybe if you have a guy that's got really low work ethic, maybe you keep more mental training in with him. But what mental means on the activity slot, it's just nothing but reducing burnout. So if it's dropping more, maybe you would think that it would burn out more. But if these are 0 and 0, I don't see how that changes anything from a burnout perspective. Be real curious to see that and watch this over the course of the next few weeks. At least get mid-season and just kind of keep doing the same thing to kind of see what happens. But I do want to look at one thing. So I did have one guy that ended up fatiguing, and it's this Drew Luger. And I wasn't doing anything differently on him. But I did want to kind of look at and see, he's got a good work ethic, good competitiveness. I don't see any reason why anything here would cause anything different, particularly when I'm trying to keep everything set on a 0-0. So, he just fatigued. I guess he just fatigued, and maybe that's an anomaly. I don't know. Nobody else has been negatively impacted at all. And I don't know that truly was due to any kind of thing that I did on the training, because I've not done anything different with any of the other linemen, particularly in going through and just getting these burnouts, back to where they are, down to 0, just by adding, more situations in here, kind of like so, and doing kind of what we have going on there. And then kind of seeing how that works out. And, one thing that I do kind of look at, I know if you're doing training things, and I feel like if you're doing a lot of things like game tape and scrimmages that really kind of get your game prep up, I think you might get a bonus or some kind of boost in your actual game planning and how the players perform within your game plan on the field. But long-term training differences, I don't know that you ever get anything really added from a conditioning or physical or athletic or technique or something like that. So that's why I try not to really focus on any one thing, but maybe go through and add tactics, which affects the game planning, and then you turn around and add scrimmage, it affects the game planning. But then if you go through and add physical and say athletic, then that's kind of what draws that up a little bit. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at on the training side of it, and that's kind of what I've been wanting to show, but I kept having that issue with it disappearing that they ended up fixing in a patch. So, with that said, I don't know what everybody else's understanding is on this new training. I think I really like it a hell of a lot better, because the old way was training really by, I guess you could train by group, and however you set those groups, whether it was by position, whether it was by work ethic, or whatever you were setting it to, it was still kind of a group affecting this set of training affected these number of players. And I think this method drills down a lot more to where you individually control each player to do kind of what you want him to do from a training perspective, to try and milk or get as much as you can. I really want to know, by doing this method and trying to keep the burnout kind of at that zero standpoint, to where everybody's kind of meshing pretty good. Am I maximizing my training though? I mean, should I be going up into the positive numbers and then trying to manage it when it gets up to a point to draw it back down? I don't know if that really matters, because at some point you got to do less training to get it back down. So if you're averaging your training across the board and keeping everything at a 0-0 and just trying to maintain that, is that all you need to do? Don't know. I mean, that would be interesting to hear other opinions. But with that, I think ultimately we are kind of set and ready to go. I have everything set up to depth chart, my strategy, everything's in place to kind of take on and get South Alabama and try and get this win and go 5-0, and see if we can get more recruits that come in, especially with the number of campus visits we have this week. So really need to knock the doors off of this South Alabama game to try and mesh and get as much as I can. But I will update and send a new episode when we complete that, and review the South Alabama game with the week 6 updating recruiting information, and kind of what we might have commit, what we lose, adjustments we make, and things of that nature. So you guys have a good night, and we'll see you on the next episode.